If it's a hard deal, other people are competing with you for that property because it's in a premier location. It's an easy deal to sell because you're going to have competition when you go to sell it. This is Byron and Nicole White, and you are tuned into episode 131 of The Real Word.
Word is up.
The word is up. We are going to do a contrarian view from what we've been talking about.
Did you Google that before?
No, I think I just had that innately.
You know that? You know?
Innately.
I feel like I need to Google it to make sure you're using it properly.
Yeah. No, we've been talking a lot about this exodus from the city, specifically New York City, because we're here in the Northeast. And so we focused a lot on that. But we've talked about everybody in different parts of the country seeing an exodus from cities, from very densely populated locations into more rural locations, right? People are moving out because of the health crisis. They want a yard. They want this more of a social distancing type of living environment that is more natural. But we're going to take the opposite approach here with racket number one. Love your feedback in the comments if you agree with this take.
Have we heard of anybody actually seeing the same thing that we were seeing? I don't read any of the comments. I'm sorry.
Right. Or, if you're seeing the opposite of what we've been talking about, exodus from the cities, but more so because I feel like right now the feeling is, yes, there's an exodus from the cities. People don't want to be there.
Well, and they're able to now work from home, which is the biggest, I think, part of the exodus, though, too, is that they don't have to be in the cities anymore in order to work.
So love to hear your opinion on this. This CEO says urban real estate will reach new heights post-pandemic. So Remy Rasner, who's the founder and CEO of the Rasner Group, they've invested in over 30 multifamily properties in New York City, primarily in Brooklyn. So Brooklyn's gone through this huge revitalization over the last 10 years. It's become the it spot in New York City, especially for younger people that want to be in the city. They're moving to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's just become cool and hip. And then obviously now with the health crisis, people have left the cities or tried to get out of the cities if they have the means to do that. So they've transformed this once rundown industrial borough into a brand new urban environment. It's very cool. As they say, cool.
They did.
Cool?
They used the word cool.
This is a Forbes article. We're starting off with Forbes today, and it says
cool.
It says literally the word cool. So he's predicting the opposite of what we've been talking about. Again, they've acquired 30 residential buildings.
He's got to put his money on it. I mean, he's got a lot of real estate, invested. He's invested in a lot of real estate, I should say.
And I want to make that clear that he's obviously biased to the city's revitalizing after the pandemic. Here's what's interesting. And I think that he's probably...
Well, right there, about we will not work,
I think he's probably right on this. We will not work from home forever, says Remy. It is just not possible to sustain companies and a large economy that way. Now, boots on the ground, Nicole and I, we're out there working with buyers and sellers in our rural Connecticut shoreline marketplace, which is seeing people from more densely populated areas, whether it's right in the heart of New York City or those densely populated suburbs around New York City that want out. Boots on the ground tell us that people do believe that they will be able to work from home forever.
Yeah, and I guess we need to specify there, though, that a lot of them aren't thinking that they're going to be working from home, the 5 days a week. They're thinking maybe they're going into the city once a week to check in, or if they need to fly somewhere, they don't need to be so close to a city because it's going to be maybe that's going to be scaled back.
I've heard a lot of buyers and leads say, my flights, I'm not going to fly nearly as much as I used to, even when the world goes back to normal. I actually believe that for these large companies because I think they've realized how much they can get done.
On a Zoom call.
Literally, they were sending people like across country to California to do a lunch. Spend the night and then fly back to do a lunch meeting, which involves nothing but Chardonnay and maybe a couple shots of tequila afterwards, right?
And I mean... Sometimes they were doing business class. I mean, yeah. Well, it's interesting though. I was watching the Today Show maybe later in the week last week, and they had the CEO of Delta on. I mean, and he's even saying that it's going to take at least 5 years for just the airline businesses to get back to normal too. So, I mean, there probably won't even be, as many flights sort of going in and out for these businesses to even,
They're certainly not
maximize.
Right now.
No.
Remy says cities like New York are not dead. The virus will pass, however hard that is. We're in the midst of it. It's hard. We know that. Everybody understands that.
Yep.
Thereafter, cities will thrive again, and urban real estate will reach new heights before we know it. So he's saying once the health crisis has passed in people's minds, whether that's a vaccine or, numbers go down, whatever, once that overwhelmingly, the feeling is it's over, that almost immediately, because he's saying before we know it.
Before we know it, yeah.
Right? I would say that's immediate.
It sounds like the next day.
That these cities are going to thrive again. Now,
he doesn't usually say, but not usually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use that word, but he's not really specifying prices though. I mean, I understand thriving, I understand new heights. Does that mean because in my mind, costs have to naturally come down.
He did mention price a little bit in this article. He talked about the fact that, I'm going to try to find it here. They've been refinancing their properties. Money is so cheap. Liquidity into the system. Cheap. He thinks all of this is going to drive real estate prices up. And certainly if people flood back into the cities, want to live there, then demand is going to push those prices up.
Right.
He says humans are social creatures, that we crave being together in person for all of the opportunities cities provide, career prospects, entertainment, social gatherings, etc.
I mean, we are certainly, I guess we were talking about it before. I mean, we are rooting for these cities. I mean, we want these cities to thrive.
That's
right. Certainly do not want them to fall. I mean, I'm dying to get back to the city. My daughter loves Broadway. I mean, I'd love to get back in. Well, I mean, obviously I'm different because I'm going to be just visiting. But
right. But here's one of the things I think that is right, that I think he said. I don't believe every single company is going to be able to put 100% of their workforce in a bedroom in their house and be as efficient as they were before. No
way. Absolutely not.
So if you can't do that, right, then we do need these cities to thrive and survive for the suburbs, for the rural areas to be healthy. I agree with you that when we're benefiting right now, there's just no question about it. Our rural parts of Connecticut shoreline have seen more interest than at any point over the last 10 years because of this city exodus.
Well, I think what's super interesting here though too is that, coupled with that though are the low interest rates. Maybe they're not buying these as primary homes, they're buying them as secondary homes and keeping their city apartments, which a lot of them really are that I've encountered. So again, money's a little bit cheaper now, so they've always been sort of on the edge of buying that second home, where now it just is so much cheaper to do it. Why don't we do it? We can live there while we can. Their kids are home, so they inevitably kind of have to be home too. I mean, if my kids don't go back to school, I mean, someone needs to be home with them too.
So do you think this is a racket? Do you what do you think?
No, I actually like hearing the other side of it. I mean, because obviously right now we don't really know much, right? I mean, we know what we're seeing, we know what people are buying. I have no idea what's going to happen when it ends. What would be interesting? I was sort of sitting here and thinking about your buddy in the city, that maybe we should even have him on.
Yeah, well, he wants to buy out here. He's already made that.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Well, but I'd love to know because he's an agent and like
you're talking about? No, I thought you were talking about my friend who just lives in the city.
No.
You talking about Josh Rubin?
Yes.
Josh Rubin. Shout out to Rubes.
We would love
the Rubin team.
Maybe
Douglas Elliman.
Josh can tell us what he's actually seeing. Maybe he's seeing something different, and we're just.
He's seeing. I'll tell you what he's seeing because I talk to him every Thursday. He's seeing lots of listings.
Yeah.
He's seeing lots and lots of listings. Because there's a lot of people that do want to sell and there's just not as many buyers. That's what they're seeing currently in the moment. He believes in New York City
more though? Like it is the spring market. Yeah,
he has way more inventory than he's had really probably ever.
Huh.
Lots of listings, lots of people that want to sell.
So I mean it is sort of contradicting what this guy's kind of saying.
Now they're not seeing a lot of these sellers wanting to reduce price or fire sale, some, but not a lot, not overwhelmingly amount. So nobody is willing to kind of drop the market down where you would start to see people that are looking for a deal and thinking long term. Here's the thing about Remy's points. He's investing in multifamily commercial real estate in the cities. Like he said, he didn't say these aren't flips, but he said we're in it for the long term.
Right.
And as trends continue to change and people shift back into the city, they feel like their sustainability of sitting there is going to pay off in the long run. I've said this for a long. I don't think this is a racket, because I do think people love the cities.
Of course. Right? Well, and I think he's right, though, too. I think there is going to come a point where people are just so desperate for interaction again. I mean, I would so much rather work in an office than from home, personally. So if I was given the opportunity to go back to work, I'm certain I would.
Right.
Yeah.
I do believe that you will see an evening out a little bit. Evening out might be the wrong word, but I do think you're going to see more and more people think about the suburbs and the rural landscape. Like let's go long approach over the next 20 years. This obviously is an immediate thing, and people are doing it now in the moment. But as technology, I've said this before on past Real Words, maybe even, go 50 episodes back, like that long ago, I think I've said this. When technology becomes so good that everybody's car is self-driving, that you can literally in 20 years fly 30 minutes away in like Jetsons mode.
Yeah.
I think at that point,
remember that's when we talked about being like, we like grass.
Yeah, I think people are going to live like wherever they want, because they can self-drive and their commute times are going to get shortened because of technology. Think about right now, like we're going to talk about Zoom on the Marketeer, not the next segment after this. Think about when Zoom in 10 years is like you're literally sitting right next to the person. The technology is going to advance. Of course, some
VR. You put on your goggles and there you are, pimping it in the conference room. I mean,
I actually think tech will enhance a move out of cities more than this health pandemic.
And I do think that Zoom needs to probably optimize on that opportunity too, because I prefer to be in a meeting live over a Zoom call, because it's like, who's there? You're looking at all the squares. You're watching like the Brady Bunch. You're not really in it. You don't feel like you're really brainstorming well. But I think the VR move would actually be.
Well, I think Zoom's going to get so good that everybody's sitting in on the Zoom call. You're going to be able to see like what they're wearing below the belt.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I think you're gonna be able to see if they're just sitting there texting below the screen. Like I think that the cameras are gonna get so good where they're gonna see everything in the room, and you better like have taken a shower that day and not be texting in the meeting when Zoom tech goes up.
Oh, and you have to do video. You can't turn your video off.
And yeah, they don't even give you the option of turning video off. That's the world I'm waiting for. All right. So I don't think it's a racket, but I do think, Remy, that you're in a tough spot over the foreseeable future. I do not believe that in this winter, all of a sudden the interest in these rural markets is going to stop. Right. I think this is going to blow through the end of 2020 and into 2021.
I think jobs in general will be interesting. I mean, some of these people probably won't even have jobs to go back to. Yeah. I mean,
well, there's that too.
Jeepers creepers.
All right, racket number 2. This is from Inman, an opinion article. 9 realities your clients will face when buying as-is properties. If you're in a market like ours that's benefiting from the city exodus, then you know there are multiple offers happening every single day on the low inventory that exists in your market. We're experiencing that here, which creates a competitive environment for buyers, and they need to make their offer more desirable for the seller. One of the ways they're doing that is as-is offers. All right, let's run down the 9 examples.
Do it. We love the numbers.
This is from Nicole Solari. I'm sure you're already giving her a couple bonus points off the first name there.
Maybe.
Nicole Solari, shout out to you. Feeling good about Nicole. Love my Nicoles. All right, number 1. Expect trouble. Contractors or investors with crews on standby likely know that they're getting what they're getting into, right? So if you're like working with a flipper, an investor, they know what they're getting into. But for newbie investors or clients who've watched a few too many HGTV home renovation shows, love you, Nicole.
Yep.
Good point there. Buyer beware has never been more crucial. So expect trouble, number 1.
Gotta.
Number 2, line up property information resources in advance. Okay, line up property information resources in advance.
What does she mean?
So don't act fast without having solid information. Like, meaning go to the town hall and do all your research. Like, have permits been pulled on this little bump out on the back, like that kind of
stuff.
Okay. That you as a savvy agent who's worked with a bunch of investors is doing, but maybe a newbie who's like going direct to the bank or something is not figuring all that stuff out, right? Number 3, money talks. Ideally, your bargain hunting buyers will have cash to entice sellers with quick, almost guaranteed closings. So yeah, I think especially on these homes that need a lot of work, the seller is going to take the cash because they don't want to get into the thing with the bank appraiser saying, I can't appraise it because that's falling down.
Or you can't even get a mortgage because there's no heat.
Right. So they may even take a lower offer that's cash.
Oh, of course. Who wouldn't?
Remember this when you're making an as-is offer. Location. So that's number 4. Everybody knows what that means. Number 5, hope for paradise, prepare for a jungle. That's similar to number 1, right? Expect trouble.
I don't know. Nicole's failing me here.
Oh.
How do you feel about it all?
You're not a big fan of Nicole?
No, I like Nicole. I don't know.
All right, number 6, be ready to fix whatever that nasty smell is. Many of the as-is listings you visit will have a funky odor. Yeah, it's called mold, right?
Well, that or like you could tell if the prior owners had dogs or if they were like cigarette smokers. Yeah, the walls are all like yellow.
Number 7, chase down the reasons. Again, we're going to pick what we think is the number 1 thing you should be looking at as a buyer in these as-is. Chase down the reasons. So like if there's rot, why? Was there termites? Has the termites, are they gone? Are they still active? Things like that. Number 8, look up, down, and all around.
Gotta.
You do that on these showings? Looking up, looking down?
I look everywhere.
All around? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everyone's trying to figure out like the seller's story and I'm just looking at it. Gotta.
So get as much information as you can. And then number 9, home inspection costs a little but can save a fortune. So if you're going to do an as-is offer and you're going to say, hey, my offer's as-is, I'm making my deposit non-refundable, but I still want to do an inspection for my information as the buyer only, information for the buyer only, that can help you get out of the deal and only give up, say, whatever your deposit was. You can still have a chance to back out.
But there's so many ways that an as-is property can happen. I mean, you can do an inspection on an as-is property. You just know that the seller's probably not going to do anything.
Right.
I mean, obviously, it would make your offer look a lot better if you didn't even have an inspection contingency in there. But
correct. Especially if you know it's.
I think that a home inspection is the most important thing. Or if you can't actually get a home inspection, maybe bring a contractor with you while you're going to look at that as-is property so that he can at least start like working through some numbers or like showing you things that maybe you wouldn't have seen, especially if you're going to, remove that home inspection contingency. Definitely bring a professional with you.
In this article, she references a movie.
Money Pit.
Have you seen that? Tom Hanks, Shelley Long, 1986, The Money Pit. You've seen that?
Have you not?
She says it's a fun movie, but you don't in real life. You don't want to live it.
Oh my Lord!
Never saw that movie.
It's sort of like our whole what's his name? Your buddy. What's his name? Come on.
Zillow's calling. Somebody pick up the Zillow call.
Sam. Come on. What's his name? The most famous guy in the world.
Michael Jordan.
Sean Penn.
Sean Penn. There he is.
Sean Penn.
We've talked about Sean Penn more on this podcast, I bet, than any podcast in the history of podcasts, unless he has his own.
He probably has his own.
All right. What do you think is the most important thing your clients should face? What's most important out of these 9 realities your clients face when buying
I do think
properties?
that a lot of these can be combined. I think expect trouble is obviously the biggest. I mean, I think you must have money in contingency.
So you're going number 1, expect trouble.
Well, but I feel like that also has to go with like look up, look down, look all around, do your
be
homework.
Educated.
Yeah. I mean, expect there's going to be problems. And again, I would highly, highly recommend you bringing somebody through. And again, I don't usually encourage parents, but if you're a young buyer and you're thinking that you want to take on one of these as-is properties, maybe even just bring your dad if he's handy, because at least
bring the dad, sure.
Well, I mean, they're always ready to talk you out of it. So at least and dad will point out everything. So
I'm going with number 4, location. A lot of buyers that are looking at these as-is properties is because they're a lower price, they're a fixer-upper, and they're like attracted to the home,
right?
But they're doing it in a location that's not premier, that's not the best, and they're doing it based off of dollars, right? If it's an easy deal to buy, it's going to be a hard deal to sell. If it's a hard deal, other people are competing with you for that property because it's in a premier location. It's an easy deal to sell because you're going to have competition when you go to sell it. At the very least, if you have the best location, you can just tear that sucker down and start fresh, and the land is actually going to be worth something, right? So
you're writing a whole new article now.
I focus on location.
You're starting
on
a whole
these
new
assets.
article.
Well, I'm not starting it. I'm basing it off of her. Selection here.
But you're knocking the house down.
But that's what I'm saying. At the very, if you do get into so much trouble, if you have a great location, at least you've got good dirt. The dirt's worth more than the things sitting on it.
I guess location's important.
Unless it's a multifamily like Remy's got on the other.
Again, with inventory so low, people are just grabbing what they can grab, right?
All right.
Anyway.
On to the Marketeer.
We're here.
Of the week.
Back
Interesting
to Zoom.
one. Off of Inman. The newest addition to your buyer's wish list, Zoom rooms.
Which again, completely contradicts segment 1.
Completely contradicts people thinking that the cities and people are going to have to go back into work into vertical buildings and all of that. Before the pandemic, a dazzling kitchen, a spacious entertainment area, and a cozy primary bedroom have been enough to seal the deal.
Oh, did you see what they did there?
Yeah.
Primary bedroom?
Primary. I did. I've got buyers now using that word.
Primary?
Yeah. It's very interesting. However, the pandemic continues and remote working becomes the norm. I think you will see more remote working.
Buyers looking for the Zoom room.
And they're looking for the Zoom room. So why is this the Marketeer? Listen, I think if you're in one of these areas, and they put it in, and we'll pop up the tweet here and show the Zillow description right here in the video. If you're watching, you can see it. If you're putting this in your Zillow description, like there's a perfect instead of saying it's a perfect room for an office, there's a perfect fourth room, great Zoom room. It's got perfect
she says
lighting.
Nice backdrop for Zoom calls.
Nice backdrop. I think you're going to use that keyword that might get a person from the city who's trying to exit into your rural or suburban area to stop and think, well, gee, that's interesting. They may even not even be interested in the property. May be interested in you, the agent, because you have foresight. You're speaking to their needs.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of obviously YouTubers that are doing a whole bunch of shows, and one comes to mind, Stephen Graham. He talks a lot about real estate, about real estate investing on YouTube. He recently bought a house. Sam, you could have let that sneeze out. I mean, I hate it. People do that. It pains me that the sweet
I don't know that
swallow.
I don't even know that I could keep a sneeze in.
Oh my goodness.
People are like, he didn't even make a noise.
Stephen Graham bought a house and actually closed up 2 windows in a bedroom because he's doing like a legit studio where like the lighting, he wants to control all the lighting with just lights, closed up all the windows in this room, painted the entire room like black, and he's got all whatever his studio setup is there, right? You see a lot of people. Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank, has a bedroom in his house where he has a setup with a TV behind him and a camera that zooms in to give him the perfect backdrop when he's going on CNBC and things like that. I do believe, I don't know who wrote this article for Inman, Marion McPherson, staff writer. We've done some of her articles in the past. I do believe, as more people are creating content over the next 10 years, that the office is going to be the media space where you can shoot video, you can get work done, you can interact with people like we're talking about on the meetings. Yeah, I think this is an absolute trend that's only going to accelerate over time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you watch the news in the morning, but like the local news, like the weathermen are still home, which is fine. I mean, most people are still home, but like they still have like, you guys had 4 months to figure out your backdrop. Like, and they're like in their dining room, like they're bouncing, like they should really.
It's hilarious to me to see that YouTubers and, social media bloggers or vloggers or people doing shows have a better setup, to your point, than these people that are on
the weatherman,
CNN and Fox News and the weather and all these different ESPN. I see it all the time. ESPN. They're sitting in a corner of a room, so you can see the corner. It's like you, my friend, are so replaceable because for the last 15, 20 years, ESPN, you have relied on ESPN, the network, instead of being somebody who can actually deliver content on your own to the end consumer, like we're doing right here in the show, like every single real estate agent should be doing in their communities, delivering the information direct. You can't even figure out a good place in your home because you're so used to the studio.
Well, and that's the problem too, because then you're so distracted because you're like, oh man, like he needs to like update his decor, or like what is that on his wall?
Bob Tinker on Twitter says new term, zoom-scaping. Instead of landscaping, a little zoom-scaping.
Interesting.
You know, so
I
deliberately arranging the visual backdrop of your home office desk for video calls, even if the out of view stuff is a mess. So everything around. Have you seen that picture of Tim Macy? Actually, if you go to Tim Macy's, I think he still has it on Facebook as his cover page. He's sitting there in his living room with a green screen. He's got the table and he's got the camera right there. And so like the photos coming from, say, this angle, and everything in his living room is like his daughter's toys. Like it's a total mess. But that one little setup is the Zoomscape, right? It's the videoscape that he's looking for.
Again, if he could pull it off with all the kids' toys, you know.
If Tim Macy can pull it off, anybody can. Well, I hope he sees this.
I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying, like, we're talking about we're talking about major networks that are like.
But the term Zoom Room, I think it could be a catchy phrase in your listings. I know Vanessa is listening, and she with our media company, she writes all of our listing descriptions for the team. I think we want Zoom rooms, Ness, in some of our listing descriptions. That could be a poll
on one of our next posts. Like, which room would be your favorite Zoom room?
Your Zoom room.
A Zoom room poll.
Love the term. Love the article. Encourage you to check it out. We link up all of the articles, and please, in the comments, love to know your opinions. Do you think the cities are going to bounce back after the pandemic? What was your pick of those 9 realities buyers should face when buying as is properties? And then are you all in on the Zoom
all
rooms?
In.
Hashtag Zoom room in the comments. All right, guys.
That's it.
That's it. Keep it real.
See ya.